Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Magic the Gathering Arena. Today is Wednesday, June the 3rd. I was started off this stream testing out a new script, Python script, Lua script, that was supposed to get the YouTube chat automatically. It doesn't seem like it's quite working. Um, I didn't have to go forward programming the countdown script that came with OBS to make it a count up script. Turns out I just had to go to the website of OBS and their forums, and there was about 5 pages worth of scripts, and I tried several of them, and not a lot of them, frankly, worked or would have been helpful for me. But I did find an advanced timer script, and if we come over here and look, I now have a script that will start counting upwards as soon as I start recording a video. Now, how am I accomplishing this? Well, I've had to go into studio mode and put this scene 2 as theoretically the preview that I would then click the transition button to show what is actually being shown here. So normally I will just see in the program Magic, and unfortunately you can't really split this too well. And why can nobody hear me? Testing. Yeah, I bet people couldn't hear me when I was showing that. Alright, so yeah, by putting the screen. Oh, I need to double check that actually. By putting the preview mode on the left side and having the game on the program on the right side, it's a little bit harder to see what's being recorded, but that's not a big deal. You are effectively using an entire scene just to run the script, just to have it count up. But it is helpful. It stops me from having to 100% rely on my cell phone, which I apparently didn't even start the timer on that one as a timer, and then lets me potentially look at the chat, which, come to think of it, I didn't do anything with the chat either. I am just not prepared today. So let me try and fix that so I can actually see the chat on my phone. And then I need to come over here and do the web peek and make sure people can hear me. So I think probably what's going on here is, yeah, people can hear me. I just needed to hide this mixer, which, there we go, that hides it, and then that keeps the audio more balanced, so I know what I'm looking at. Like the desktop, virtual desktop, and virtual microphone don't really matter. I think, yeah, I don't think a virtual desktop and a virtual microphone really are needed as much as you would think. And I think I kind of have my whole system kind of wonkily set up, and it's not particularly the best layout I think you could have for trying to have it so that in some scenes you don't have the desktop playing, and in some scenes you do have the desktop playing. Sometimes you try to do something cool, and sometimes it just overcomplicates the system. Alright, we even got somebody on the chat already. We have somebody say, "Hey bro, I had an idea today." Okay, I guess at the risk of opening that door, I will listen to your idea. Certainly, we are in tumultuous times, if that's a word. Let's see. Max says, "Tomorrow for me, I will buy pay safe card and I can buy you Ben and Ed. Okay, that would be cool. I would probably say you might want to wait until the Steam Summer Sale. We're only a couple of days away from that, maybe a week or two. So it probably would just save you money that way. I won't get around to playing Ben and Ed anytime soon. But yes, I totally appreciate when people support me and give me games. It is a nice one-time thing. But yeah, I'm not gonna do more than the standard YouTuber shilling of it, and I'm not gonna demand it of anybody. Certainly, Max says it's just $10, and I saved up a lot, up lots of money, so it's no waste. Okay, well that sounds cool. I will take that gift in the spirit is intended, and say thank you. I'll say thank you even before it happens, because the intention to do a nice thing is appreciated even. Magic has gotten weird, by the way, with the audio in the menu. It's probably the right move that they've stopped the music from kind of playing in the menu. But it is weird all of a sudden that they did start doing that. Let's see, we've got just a lot of ads here for Secret Lair. Let's check out the store. There is this, there was this Blackout Tuesday event that happened on Tuesday. I wasn't really on Twitter, and it seemed to be mostly centered around Twitter. So I didn't even really know it was happening until late in the evening. Also, my insomnia certainly has me quite often sleeping during the day. So I've really been very lucky to be able to kind of check out on a lot of this stuff and not watch a lot of news and so the only thing is we'll talk about it a little bit as it circulates around video game companies and participating, and that's about it. If it's not video game related, I'm going to try and stay off that topic completely. People come here for video game news, and that's what I'm going to try and give people. But it does also explain like why there was going to be slightly less news. I really do want this, but should I really be spending 3,000 gold? Like, that doesn't even like make sense. This plus 5 more of these would be the same amount. Like, I'm just getting sleeves that I'm never going to use to potentially just eliminate this. I think we need to save up. So I'm going to say no to that daily deal. This ends in 21 days. And we'll get one more skin. Let's see. Max says that's all I had to say. So hope you play as soon as possible. See you in the next stream or video. Okay. Thank you, Max. So we've got some packs. Ravnica Allegiance now feels like it is more valuable to me than getting another Ikora card. Just because I think we've kind of run out of steam with Ikora cards, and Ikora cards aren't even that bad. But you can see here we're getting common wild cards, uncommon wild cards, and how many of those really are new cards. See, a third copy of this one, second copy of that one, third copy of that one, second copy of that one, fourth copy of that one, fourth copy of that one, first copy of this, which is a Ravnica card, second copy of this one, third copy of this one, second copy of this one. Yeah, let's just see, what have we not collected from Ravnica? which is about to go into historic. Pretty long list. Compare that to Ikra, much shorter list. And most of these, I think, are either mythic or I never get these rares or mythic rares. By the way, if I sound any different, I changed my seat after living with a horrible seat that felt like it was going to break on me for the past month or so. I finally just put a different chair, so it has me kind of ridiculously high. My feet are not actually touching the ground, so I need to kind of lower it, and because of that I moved my microphone around. It's still the same microphone, although I did also change a bunch of microphone settings when I was goofing around. It wasn't particularly a great day yesterday for getting things done, because I also worked on my network. Like, something about my network is causing some devices to kind of lock up. Alright, let's try 4-color. We're gonna try this a little bit differently. Let's look at the cards we're about to play with and not look at the cards that we're gonna potentially challenge. Me playing a 4-color deck is pretty insane. It is really just a max issue of, what am I trying to say there? I really don't have that level of skill to be playing 4 colors. That's going to be challenging to say the least. I just removed a pillow. I was using a pillow behind my back, but with this new chair, I think that's actually not necessary. Okay, I think there's something about this one in particular. So I'm gonna keep this, if I recall correctly. The bounty counter and target or planeswalker. Whenever a permanent opponent controls a bounty counter, it dies. You gain 3 life and draw a card. Yeah, that doesn't seem like much. So yeah, what I want to do today, I did get some Evil Within 2 recorded, and I guess it would be best described to the midpoint. That's where I think we really are at this point, is that we are I am at like the midpoint, although it might not be as actually a midpoint as you would think. Interesting. Like, I do think we kind of are somewhere close to a midpoint section where there's a whole nother twist that happens. And the twist for the Evil Within 2, I don't want to spoil the twist, was pretty much predictable, in the sense that there had to be a character that was being teased, and it could only have been 2 or 3 people. And like, my remembering of what the story was and what happened in the Evil Within 1 is very little, so I'm a little confused as to what happened in the DLC of the Evil Within 1, and if anything important worth remembering happened in the main game of Evil Within 1 at all. It doesn't really feel like anything did happen, because the 2 games feel like they are completely separate. It really does feel like this is just, it has the Evil Within 2 as a name, but in actuality it's a completely different project that just got that label. It feels totally not like a horror game. On casual, it's just way too easy, and I have no way of turning up the difficulty. I really made a mistake there, and very rarely do I have the experience in a game where if it's too easy, that kind of ruins it, but this kind of ruins it, because there needs to be either enemies that are a little bit more bullet spongy, or more enemies. I think it needs to be more enemies. Like, because you're getting into these small segmented open world sections, and it really is just up to you whether you want to spend the effort. Like, it really is just up to you whether you want to spend the effort to... Why can I not pay that? Interesting. So I can summon this, but... I can't mutate it, because it costs 1 more to mutate it. Well, I gotta get this on the field or I'm gonna lose anyways. So yeah, it's just a weird game. Like, you can run through it very linear. It has a lot of hallmarks of Resident Evil 4 while still kind of let's see. Let's do that. But it really misses the mark, I think, compared to a lot of the elements of Resident Evil 4 that made Resident Evil 4 good. In the sense that Resident Evil 4 was constantly putting you in new locations, different locations, constantly giving you new enemies, constantly telling you a admittedly cheesy but not in any way terrible story. Let's see. This one, we should just let it hit, I guess. Let's see. Interesting. Can I do this? This will tap a target creature. So this is just gonna tap this, and then that'll just mess us up more. We've probably lost here. So yeah, it's really hard to get into Resident Evil. No, not Resident Evil 4. It's very easy to get into Resident Evil 4, but it really does just feel like that they were trying to capture that lightning in the bottle a second time, and they were failing miserably with that. See. Put this on the field, I guess. And I guess we need a red. Take the action. Put that red on the field. And then we can mutate. Yeah, playing 4-color. Putting 4-color of this on the on the field is crazy. You don't burn bodies in the Evil Within 2 like you do in the first game. In fact, I even ran into a section where a person did burn bodies and it just didn't work. It made things worse by the looks of it. So the enemies don't respawn like they did in the first game, which I'm not going to say I absolutely love that concept, but it did at least give this consistent, frightening experience to a lot of the players, to the characters. Alright. Would this not just bring the enchantment on? So mutate. Whenever this one mutates over, do -2/-2 to kill that. And then here we've got a trample. Do I want to discard a card to draw a card? Sure. And can we mutate this? We'll do under and give it flying. And do we want to discard a card? Sure. And then just choose attackers. Well, I'll be darned if I didn't win with this. Alright. Life link counter on it. Would be bad. Let's see. Put this here. Put this here. Get some life back. And put this here. And then all attack. And it's going to be really hard for him to survive. I suppose it is also worth mentioning that there is a boss fight that happens. No. The boss fight in Evil Within 2 is pretty terrible. The guy that I was fighting, I took out with my shotgun, and the shotgun is the weakest of the weak. There was even a point before the boss fight where I was able to wander through the entirety of one map segment with basically no bullets at all. Like, I needed very, very few bullets. I did entire, like, side sections, went out of my way to find enemies. It really did not matter one bit. Ooh, that's a good card to get. Let's go ahead and just play with these other decks just for the fun of it, but then that's going to be it. So we're just going to play one game, and then that is that. I do want to spend today going through the news fairly fast and get back to doing the wishlist cleanup, which I should report back. Then off screen I did do the wishlist cleanup and cleaned it up. Not so many visual novels got removed as I thought would, but certainly plenty of other games. I've now, several years into running this channel, I reevaluated some of those games. A lot of them are just mixed. There's kind of a worrying trend on my wish list of me being willing to play the first and second game in a trilogy that are bad and reviewed poorly just to get to the third game. There's one called Dungeons that is exactly that example, where Dungeons 1 is not reviewed well, Dungeons 2 is not reviewed well, but Dungeons 3 is reviewed well, and it's a Dungeon Keeper like clone. So why should I cover the first two instead of simply just jumping to the third game and telling people like, hey, I have a budget too. I'm not gonna be so ridiculous that that I would be willing to waste money just because something exists. Interesting. So I'd have to attack and put that in on the second. Interesting. So I'd have to attack with this, then play this. Now, if this one has Death Touch, but it doesn't do... it says any amount of damage with Death Touch that the creature to a creature is enough to destroy it. So wouldn't that... Does that include 0? Because 0 is an amount of damage. It's just a 0 amount of damage. Or we could just kill this one. Let's see. This seems to allow you to put more characters on the field. Probably isn't a bad idea. How about we do this, and then we do this. No, that doesn't work. That was a bad plan. So yeah, we've had the accountability section. We talked about playing Evil Within 2. There's really not a ton to say. There might be some things to say in the second half, but it does just seem like it's kind of an unpolished thing. It almost feels like if the elements of the Evil Within 2 were merged into the Evil Within 1, it would make sense. That like everything I've seen is just stuff that was left on the cutting room floor of the first game. But the Evil Within 1 was a particularly long game, and it didn't need extra elements. In a weird way, the first half of the Evil Within 2 is like that Bioshock sequence when you're fighting the artist guy, but oddly the artist in this case is in no way as interesting as man, I am low on mana. He's just not interesting as a character. He doesn't talk enough. He doesn't have enough of enough monologues or enough scenes. And in all honesty, in Bioshock 1, had you fought the artist person who had you running around killing his previous apprentices and taking photos of them, which that was a cool concept that definitely was not brought over to the first game, even though it is still a photography person. There's just nothing. It does not hold up to that comparison at all. It's just a pale imitation. And I think mostly that is monologues. Mostly that does also center around the idea that in the open world sections, you're really just fighting random zombies. You're not fighting somebody that seems like they are being created intentionally by the main bad guy. They really fail to make the main bad guy feel like he is the main bad guy. Do I want to kill something here? Might as well. Oddly, at the halfway point, you would have thought you would have had all of the weapons in the game, and you just don't. You just don't have them. There you go. Can we activate this ability? Yep, we can, and we have exactly one that we can put on the field. We don't even have 4 copies of this Whisper Squad. Okay, well, then let's start covering the video game news, and then we'll try to get a few more letters. And just every episode, we will, until we get down to Z, we will try to clean up the new wish list and go through it as a supplemental thing. Honestly, I should have thought about doing this a long time ago, like a month or 2 ago. It would have made a lot more sense. Humans. These are human soldiers. Okay. And we'll do that. And then we'll do that. It was really shocking how many of the video game sources, just because that's really the only people I follow on Twitter, like that and cosplayers, sometimes lewd cosplayers. I'll admit to following them too, but it's shocking how many video game news sources have jumped on the bandwagon. It's probably great press, certainly, but we will see in at least one instance it comes off as a inaccurate. Ooh, we get 2. Alright, so lifelink and menace. Nice. Tap 2 untapped humans, you control. Tap target creature, and opponent controls. Let's see. Well, let's just do no attack. There. But yeah. Yeah, there's just a ton of political news that I'm going to filter through, and I think people probably are better off if I do filter through. But I have heard a few people certainly say that they have just gotten off Twitter lately because it's just too much for them. I think that is a fair response, frankly. Yeah, I don't know what he's gonna do. I don't know what his plan there was. I guess now he can destroy a creature. Alright. So take your pick. Probably gonna kill this one. Tap 2, untapped. Tap creature and opponent controls. Can I do this now? Interesting. So that taps them. And then let's go ahead and just attack with all these. And then put this on the field. And that creates that. Okay. Then end the turn. And then I think I can just activate this again, because we have a human here and a human here. So as soon as he does something, this enchantment should let me activate it. Yep. Tap that. And that and that. Alright, so we have a Gamatsu article here. VVV Tunia has been delayed August 6th in Japan, and Mary Skelter Finale has been delayed October 8th. Delayed about a month. I'm assuming that these delays have a lot more to do in Japan with just the coronavirus, which is still something. Zero's even. Interesting that they'd say zero's even. So 2 and 4. I want to get this on the field. And just go and tap that. And then these two. So yeah, game delays I think still will be a thing, and it's questionable what would even really pull people out of that, frankly. So I'm gonna go even. So now this has protection from converted mana costs of even, which each of these is even. I can put this on the field, and then we can go ahead and tap this and tap these two, and then I'm gonna attack with this one, and this one. But honestly, I probably could win if I went with this, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. We have a game on Steam here called Time of Special Team, which looks like it is not even a terrible looking first-person shooter game. It kind of looks like it's a cell phone or iPad game. Let's see what this is. It requires VR. It's 99 cents. That is really crazy. TOST, Time of Special Team. Doesn't seem like it's English. It's like a Korean game, apparently, in VR. For 99 cents. That's crazy. It really crazy, because if you sold this for 99 cents on Steam, I'd be like, alright, well, this doesn't look terrible. But then you have to have like a $600 headset to play the game, and that doesn't make any sense. So just because of that disconnect, I can't really put it on the follow list. It's just too insane. I was not expecting to win there. And I guess we'll check out Vigilance too, which odds are it's a bunch of creatures with Vigilance. Is there anything specific that Vigilance synchronizes with? It doesn't seem like it. But we'll try it. We'll try every deck. I do want to learn new things, even if it does mostly prove to be useless information that just goes over my head as far as Magic is concerned. Next we have a game on Steam here called Hell Wedding, which looks to me like it is a kind of Chinese visual novel or Japanese visual novel horror game. I'd say it's probably a little bit more Chinese than anything. It's free to play, but then it has $9.99 DLC that you probably have to buy. It's Chinese only, yeah. I can't say I absolutely hate this animation style. It looks fine, and this definitely looks way better than a lot of other Chinese low effort games out there. So I appreciate the appearance of them improving. This was a pretty terrible hand to start off with. To something different, we have a Gamma Sutra article, Game Workers Unite, which was the organization, I believe, that didn't want to become a video game union and yet wants to kind of act like they're a union. Game Workers Unite Seattle chapter particular calls for the removal of a Game Workers Unite International member over, quote, exclusionary behavior. Now, just from this title, I wouldn't be surprised if this is someone who is a considered to be a trans exclusionary radical feminist TERF, because they are the ones that tend to be always getting in conflicts, whether deserved or not. The general idea, as I understand it, is like women's rights becomes very confused, and this was always a problem with the LGBT QIA plus organizations, is that as they kept including more and more people, and it became that some people that were somewhat being represented by those organizations were then all of a sudden having to support things that they didn't support. It's kind of the inherent problem of being in any organization, but the charter, as it were, I think this is probably the best way to even say that, is it just kept on growing. What a lot of the organizations kept on growing, and feminists often they're for biological women's rights, and a lot of times, or at least TERF feminists are, and so they don't want to really focus on or possibly even support at all a biologically born male who transitioned to a female, who then is claiming that the feminist movements should support them, which in a lot of situations people argue that there's good reason for that. Feminist Joe Rogan puts it and talks about it quite a bit, where like feminists don't want to support a group of boys in high school who are wrestling girls when they say they feel like they're female, but they're not doing any hormonal treatment, and they're not doing any kind of transitioning at all. They're just using it to gain an advantage. And particularly when you're talking about, in the case of wrestling or sports, spending your entire youth through puberty often as a male is going to just have you develop more muscle mass, generally speaking, than a female would, and more strength and ability that is often tested specifically in sports. So that's what I'm guessing this is from the title. Let's get into the actual details. I don't know why I read titles and then speculate wildly on the titles and then not actually get into the things, but I imagine that's how a lot of people react, so it does give a nice little springboard. However, I would say, towards having conversations or talking about things you've heard. But yeah, let's read it. The Seattle chapter of Game Workers Unite is calling for the changes made to the GWE in response to exclusionary behavior and bullying from Marajam Djgalviet. I don't know how you'd pronounce that. What is that? Is that Swedish? Prominent member of the games industry focused things. And see, probably this is just like one Twitter person fighting over another Twitter person's. The behavior of the IGAW's alleged inaction towards it is the crux of the statement. Blah, blah, blah. It's a significant accusation made towards an organization that's publicly advocated social issues. Yeah, they need a better charter. First of all, Game Workers Unite should just not have any charter or goal other than uniting all video game workers in general, to start with. Now, if there's some subcommittee that pops up 5 years down the line to have a more diverse employment, that's one thing. But that they clearly have focused from the word go. And as far as I know, Game Workers Unite has really failed to accomplish much of anything, if anything at all. Which becomes a problem. Certainly when you're trying to have a successful movement. Their main failure, of course, is just that they don't want to be a union, and they should be a union. Let's see. In a recent thread on its newly formed anti-racist committee, condemned racism and white supremacy, and pledged to root it out of its own ranks. Okay, so yeah, they're already starting an anti-racist committee. The Seattle chapter is, which is silly. Certainly, that they already assume that in their own ranks of their own group that they've been infiltrated by racist people, but that is SJWs in a nutshell. Also, is that they eat their own at the first turn of a hat. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, they're saying well, actually they're saying they want a anti-racism committee also after they have an anti-racist committee. See, either this article is written terribly. In a recent thread on its newly formed anti-racist committee, and then this next paragraph, to prioritize the creation of the anti-racism committee to address it. So maybe they're in the first steps of creating it. But I'm having a real hard time figuring out what this person did or said. And like, this is just bad journalism, when you pretty much can expect from Gamasutra. And Gamasutra is not a great news reporter in this anyways, because if they are not somewhat involved with Game Workers Unite, they are definitely promoted it like crazy when it first started. See, this person published a statement on a single incident she notes that she believes prompted these accusations. where she inadvertently, in her retelling, shot down the proposal from Lion Killer dev Sissy Zhang that Game Workers Unite make a thread on white supremacy for fear of making the international organization too focused on Western stuff. Okay. See, and that's the funny thing here is it's pretty obvious all Game Workers Unite really is just a Discord group or Facebook group. Like it really doesn't seem like it is anything more than that. Let's see, attack here, and attack here. And let's see, the quote here is, I said 3 clumsy sentences in a meeting that were not closing down the discussion, but just want to try to rethink it. Immediately felt bad about it and addressed it and apologized to Sissy straight away. I asked for good faith that it was essentially a miscommunication and I was ready to post any thread that eventually got made. I would never counter any messages. So they literally are just they are literally just eating their own because someone who happened to be a person of color got shut down in a single conversation about making a pointless thread that would be probably not read by a dozen people. Like they're really not handling the big issues there. Like, and this is inherently part of the problem with having chapters. And you can even see that in things as simple as like Boy Scouts or any other organization like that, where it's just chapters and sections. Like, sure, there can be a overall somewhat controlling authority, but they usually have very little control or influence. They just put out some general guidelines, and some chapters can be really good, some chapters can be really bad. Even if Game Workers Unite was a union, there certainly would have been will be, if it did become a union, there would have been some chapters that would have been good and some that are bad. But generally speaking, union people don't air their dirty laundry, which is all this really seems to be. It seems very ridiculous and very pointless to bring about this claim. It's ridiculous for Gamasutra to put it out there. This is not news to the max, really. It's just a waste of people's time. Alright. Like, first strike. Let's view the battlefield. Flying. I don't need to do anything. This is crazy that I've been able to win with all 3 decks. All of a sudden I feel like I actually know how to play Magic. So, like, there's really just no story there at all. Like, someone had a conversation. I can slightly talk about the idea that what SJWs in the United States in particular want, and what other people who are fighting for like equal rights are what they are fighting for around the world, are often very different things. Like SJWs in particular do kind of seem like they are just often stupidly obsessed with small things and instead of big things or more global things. Feminism in Japan, for instance, is pretty much almost completely at odds with what SJW, third wave feminism in the United States is. And I would say SJWs in particular are always looking for a target to attack instead of trying to actually work with anybody to make any changes, or do anything that would actually affect change at all, even if they weren't working with someone. So yeah, it's not a great idea to have an international organization just be focused on Western stuff, and you hear that certainly as I talk about the West and Japan and Korea and Asia, is that there particularly in video games is this big divide. There's two organizations there, and maybe Europe is like the third group, and then you'll get little patches of like Brazilian game creators and African game creators, Asian, Middle Eastern Asian game creators, but like there is certainly a lot of problems. The whole idea of trying to classify video game addiction as a disease is a very very Eastern concept that is getting pushed. That it is the desire of countries like China in particular to be able to lock up the kids of people that are politically misaligned with the Chinese government, or just lock up kids in general and send them off to a re-education camp that would very quickly turn into a concentration camp. That's really where this is gonna head. Whereas a Westerner going, oh yeah, video game addiction is real because my little Johnny plays 2 hours of video games on the weekends. It's not looking globally. And a lot of that is the United States people's fault. Like, United Statesians, citizens of the United States, are notoriously bad about looking at anything that's happening around the world. They just are. And it's hard to even have an argument against that. So every topic for most United States citizens is from this very myopic point of view. I hope myopic's the right word there, where they assume that everything just revolves, that their perspective on things is the same everywhere, and it just isn't. Well, I'm not going to get to the wishlist cleanup if I keep on rambling, so let's keep on moving. Techruptor has an article here. Do Not Feed the Monkeys release has been delayed for the Nintendo Switch. I heard there's a game that is coming out for PC and the Switch that is basically Donkey Kong, but not made by Nintendo. So it's like a fan game, and I think it's called Kong Castle or something along that line. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see if that actually gets released on the Nintendo eShop, because that would be something different for sure, for something to effectively be a clone of a Nintendo game. Now, it's not like Nintendo would ever make the arcade games of Donkey Kong 1, 2, and 3 again. Like, that, it doesn't really make sense to do that. They did make like a Game Boy game that was supposed to be a sequel to the Donkey Kong games, but they've pretty much assumed that if there's going to be any Donkey Kong games, they're going to be Donkey Kong Country 2 style games, not Donkey Kong arcade games. But on the other hand, Donkey Kong is such an early arcade game that it really is going to be hard to convince people to play it for more than 5 minutes. And that is speaking as someone who actually owns a Donkey Kong arcade game. And I mean a actual arcade cabinet. That thing has been sitting in my house for probably, oh man, it might be close to 15 years now, and it has been played maybe 4 or 5 times, and it's pretty much probably never gonna turn on or work again without major repair. And the only reason I have it is because I used to be a major Nintendo collector. But even having the original experience, it's not that interesting. And I still sometimes fantasize about owning like a Miss Pac-Man cocktail cabinet emulator type station. It would have to play almost every video game as a cocktail cabinet and serve the purpose of being a table, and in other ways serve a good purpose, before I could ever even begin to get close to justifying purchasing or building something like that. But even then I probably wouldn't play it too much. Like arcade games, pinball tables. Pinball, I actually would like to own a pinball table or two, but they take up so much space. They're so expensive, so much upkeep on them, and even then I'd probably only play it maybe once a month. Like, okay, so we block this one, and then we sacrifice this, and we put that here. I might lose here in this game. Why didn't I block with this? What happened there? Yeah, I don't know what just happened there. I should have been able to block with that, and I wasn't. So I must have attacked. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Last of Us 2 will feature dozens of accessibility options. Great for it, but it seems like everybody hates it. So it might be interesting in a post-mortem to look at all the accessibility options for Last of Us 2, but it does kind of seem like if it has more than an average game would have for being a AAA game, they wasted their money and they should have had a better writer. Alright. This here. This here. And this here. That's what should have happened last turn. We sacrifice this. And then we put this back. There are some non-standard commander cards that win the game if you have like 40 health or 50 health, which is an interesting thought, certainly. But it would be pretty hard in standard because the cards aren't playable, so you really couldn't do it. I don't know if there's actually any. Alright, well. Lost there. That seemed like a fair and square loss. Well, on Silver Tier 1, and it seems like we will spend the entirety of the month struggling to get up to Gold Tier, and then if we get on a really good win streak, we might get up to Platinum Tier again, but I don't think we're going any further than that. Alright, we have a game on Steam called Ballad of the Masked Bandits, which looks like an asset flip game, or you're playing as a raccoon. Yeah, it does look like it's kind of an asset flip raccoon simulator. Early access free, so English only. I wouldn't hate the idea of playing as a raccoon. Like, they are an interesting creature running around at night, stealing things, food out of garbage cans and things like that. It does feel like that might make for an interesting survival game, an interesting way to do a spin on a Thief clone style game. But also you could probably do more of a kid-friendly version of that, where you're not just brutally murdering people from behind in a stealth type game. There was, I don't even remember the name of the game, but there was a raccoon thief character that was it. I think it's like Shy Fox or something. But he was a raccoon, so I'm pretty sure. There was a game like that at one time, and it didn't get maintained and supported as a series. And the most recent one I don't think was particularly good. And obviously it's not that memorable, even though it was kind of a AA game that did have some popularity originally. But yeah, it was like a PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 game. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Enchantress, which is a horror asset flip game with a creepy, like, nanny looking character. While I was watching this video, if we jump down here, her hand, I believe, jumps right through the wall. Yep, it clips right through the wall in the video. This is early access, $3.99, and yeah, English only. It's too cheap, and it doesn't look like it would be much of a horror game. I'm also in this position where more and more it becomes less useful to even begin to think about playing a lot of these small horror games that are not likely to be breakout hits. It just doesn't seem like that's worth your time anymore, because they really are getting closer to the asset flip territory than further away from the asset flip territory. Even though these horror games do look not pretty, that's kind of all I can say about them. Like, is that they look pretty in a screenshot, and that's about it. 2 damage to any target. Well, let's do this so that you can't do that. I guess I can attack with the flying one. Nothing's stopping me from doing that. Gamatsu has an article here, and the action-adventure game QV is coming to the Switch this summer, which looks colorful, but I'm not sure really what it is. If it's a shoot-'em-up or what. JRPG, calling it an action-adventure game. You have an anime girl and some kind of big squirrel creature. Yeah, and there's like no explosion. It seems like there's 2 characters, one that starts with Q and one's name that starts with V. And this guy is a penguin. Yeah, so no telling, really. No telling whatsoever as far as what this is what I'm gonna get wrecked. Well, They tried, and they lost. Yeah, there's full victory now. See, next we have a game called Cosmodrome, which looks kind of like a top-down twin stick shooter. Doesn't look particularly impressive. Looks like it just has a bunch of bright colors. Requires a controller, it's free, it's English only. We have seen a higher number, percentage-wise, a higher percentage, I guess, of free games lately, and I wonder if that is possibly to do with well, with the COVID situation, is that nobody is willing to release anything and try and get people to spend money when people are broke. And particularly in the United States, people very well have been broke since 2018. Frankly, people may have been broke since the inception of the United States in 200 years ago, because there's just always been a lie of America being a particularly rich company. It is a, relatively speaking, rich country for sure, but there's plenty of people that were always overextending. We're always running credit cards. We're always doing something that that was putting them in a bad position. They were potentially buying very large, very expensive houses that they couldn't really afford if they ran the numbers. And that's not completely different from other countries, but here we've won. It's just gonna go through all this. I wish there was a way to speed this up, but nope. It's just gonna play through it. So yeah, no big surprise that a lot of people don't want to buy games, particularly at the price that they're at. Like, video game costs have never really gone down, when arguably the cost should have gone down a little bit. Like, no longer is it the same price to create a cartridge and sell a cartridge through a toy store. Like, those costs have been significantly reduced. Like, putting even a CD on the shelves at Walmart 10 years ago should be cheaper than putting a DVD or Blu-ray on the shelves at Walmart today. That's not even getting into the part of digital delivery. Moving on, Game Sutra has this article. Humble is putting $1 million towards publishing games from black game devs. Now, at a certain point, what makes a video game company a black, and I guess you have to say black because it might be African Americans, or it might be Africans, it might be people of African ancestry. The problem with that is there is a collaborative element there, and it does feel like there could easily be a few video game companies out there with a token employee trying to get this $1 million. But on the other hand, I'm not going to complain about Humble actually putting money where their mouth is and actually trying to donate and do some good. I think, generally speaking, Humble Bundle does actually act as a decent charity, and they let you adjust the sliders in most cases, where Humble Bundle doesn't get any percentage at all towards their operating percentage, and you can just give 100% to the charity, and one assumes that there's no backroom deals at that point. by default, if you don't adjust the sliders, you are donating maybe as much, I think, as 30% of the total you spend on a Humble Bundle towards Humble Bundle themselves, which is kind of typical. It's not insane, an insane percentage for a charity to take to cover their operating expenses. Meanwhile, though, there's plenty of video game companies that put out these things, plenty of TV shows and other things that put out these walls of text, and all they're really saying is that they're supporting this movement for PR reasons, but they're not really actually supporting it with any finances or any action whatsoever. And honestly, I would have preferred if 99.9% of all the video game companies who did that on Tuesday just went silent. And from what I hear, since everybody was tweeting out that hashtag, the hashtag itself was getting drowned out by people just tweeting out their support, instead of what it was supposed to be was you were supposed to follow the hashtag to hear the voices and hear the stories of people of color and their experiences, is how I understood it. So you have effectively a huge amount of people virtue signaling on Twitter using the hashtag, drowning out the voices that they say need to be heard, which it's not productive, for sure. It's not helpful. Like, people on Twitter don't even understand the basic idea of, if you want to let somebody be heard, the first thing you have to do is shut up yourself. And people on Twitter in general, I think, don't have much capability as far as staying silent and shutting up and just listening. I don't think people in general have that much capability to do that. I probably don't have a great amount of skill to do that as a YouTube content creator. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Sega Shiro video reveals enemy Sega Hatan Shiro's true identity. Who, I have no idea what this even has to do with anything. Like, this must be some kind of commercial that is done in Japan. Yeah, this must be some kind of commercial in Japan, because it makes no sense to me. And the commercials in Japan tend to be a little crazy and wild, but they're not terrible by any means. Oh, do I want to play that? No, we'll just end the turn here. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Cyberpunk 2077 Night City Wire presentation has been postponed to June 25th, no longer planned for June 11th. There was also a PlayStation 5 event that was postponed. I don't know if we talked about that before, but yeah, events are just getting postponed like crazy, and that's probably a good move all around. Taking more time is not a bad idea. TechRaptor has an article here. Footage of THQ's canceled The Avengers first-person shooter has been revealed. You can definitely see that this is just stand-in art. So, not really a lot you can see here. This looks like Thor over here, and this looks like the Hulk. So I kind of assume that you're playing as Iron Man. Let's see if there's anything really worth mentioning here. The people running around a blocky room and fighting just a bunch of generic, like, Space Marine looking creatures. Creatures with shields. It doesn't even feel like it's a first-person shooter in actuality. It looks much more like a almost beat 'em up in first-person perspective. And there was just a box just said Jim and Jim. Yeah. Can't really say that what I'm seeing here looks great. I think the concept kind of falls apart too. Like there is something wrong with the idea that you would that you would have the Avengers running around in a first-person shooter shooting guns, because that's kind of not what the Avengers are all about. Feels like in this demo they're fighting Skrill, the little green aliens that never went anywhere as far as that storyline. Like that was supposed to be the next big thing, and it didn't happen. Or it kind of happened and then people forgot about it immediately. Yeah, that was a mistake. I did not need to waste my mana to tilt somebody. Let's see. The article here has a paragraph, why was it canceled? Like, well, I can pretty much tell you the reason, almost certainly why it was canceled, is because the Disney at the time pretty much canceled all their video game contracts, except for some of the Star Wars stuff with I think EA, and even a lot of those kind of eventually got canceled. And they kind of reset. I think a lot of it had to do with them just not having the right person in charge of the Disney internal group, and I think frankly is just it was a decision to just kind of reset everything, and it didn't matter to Disney. In a weird way, it probably matters a lot more now to Disney. If they could go back, they probably would have regretted canceling the development of these games, because they don't have anything else really to show at the moment, as it is, because their movies aren't doing especially hot. Disney Plus as an option is doing all right, but I don't think as good as it should be doing in their eyes. And let's see, well, I'm gonna go ahead and just cancel this. And then eat this. And then put this on the field. Actually, I could have won a while ago, couldn't I? Well. So yeah. Disney would be a lot happier, I think, right about now if some of these Marvel games had been developed. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the THQ Avengers game concepts just gets put into the Avengers game that is in development right now, and So, but it probably wouldn't have hurt them to have an Avengers game that is just a cheap movie tie-in product for every Marvel movie that's out there. And I don't even know what the next Marvel movie is or when it's coming out. Like, it's been fairly quiet after, like, Avengers Endgame, I think. There was like a Spider-Man movie, I know, but yeah, I don't know if there's been any new phase started at all with the Marvel's Endgame section, and Marvel comic books and comic books in general aren't doing good. Moving on, TechCraft has an article. Days of Wonder has released a Ticket to Ride Stay at Home free print edition, which is effectively just a PDF as far as I understand it, where you can download a bunch of papers and play it, like, so play it at home. Ticket to Ride, somewhat popular game, not amazingly good though. They've intentionally made all the art, it seems, to be fairly ugly and hand-drawn, probably so it doesn't look as good as actually buying the actual version of it. Let's see. But heck, if you're stuck at home and you have nothing better to do, Ticket to Ride's not a terrible thing. The main bigger deal is that the digital version of Ticket to Ride is very expensive and not well programmed. And that's my bigger complaint with the Ticket to Ride series. Yep. See, it is straight up just a PDF version. And you just print out the paper. It is a different idea, certainly, for Ticket to Ride, though, also. Because you're not specifically, you're not really moving on a railroad to different places. You're staying within the house. So they have kind of expanded the idea, as it were. If you were going to do this right, you'd almost certainly want to print this on a good solid cardstock that you probably don't have, and you probably would want it to want to laminate the cards if you were going to play it a lot. But yeah, it's not bad for free. Not a terrible offering for free. But it is also kind of just a self-promotion advertisement thing. You're not getting a lot of this. Unfortunately, my phone has just decided that it is going to go dark and go into a temporary lock screen, regardless of the fact that I don't want it to do that, and I've told it I don't want it to do that. They've just implemented some new software, apparently, and it's just like, no, you can't have your phone do the thing you want to do, which is just to keep the screen on when it's plugged in. It's very annoying. And I have like a Samsung Galaxy S9, and I'll have to continue to try and search some way to disable it. I looked in the settings as best as I could quickly. All these little distractions just constantly pop up in life. This is life, I guess, in general, but it is super annoying that, like, as a YouTube content creator, all I want to do is wake up in the morning, get ready to record some videos, and then at some point once a week upload those videos and go through the hassle of scheduling them. I wish I didn't have to schedule them even. But constantly it's like, oh, your network's messed up, or oh, the internet's down, or oh, there's some other distraction, or oh, there's some other distraction. Like, just these distractions happen all the time, and I guess I'm ideally I can put up with it, but I'm not particularly happy about distractions. I don't think many people are. I may be a little bit rigid, for sure. Like, that would be believable, but yeah. And some of it I definitely do just bring on myself. Like, when I'm wasting time looking at YouTube videos, when I'm just playing like games on my phone instead of recording footage, that would happen. That's me distracting myself, certainly, when I'm watching just TV. But there's kind of a difference between choosing to take downtime and being distracted because of something that you didn't want to have, that you didn't expect to happen and didn't want to have happen. Alright, well, we've lost here. We might as well just concede. It's definitely a different experience than being in school. Like, in college and high school, you might have some electives and some control, but in junior high, elementary school, it's like the experience that the teachers create, where they are just the arbitrators of your schedule. They are the dictators of what is going to be done now. Like, you're just under this weird, almost militaristic regimen of it's 9 in the morning, school will start. You will have an hour of math class. In the math class, the teacher will tell you exactly what is going to be done, and there will be no deviation from that at all. There will be no distractions. There will be no random special events. The price of freedom, I guess, is that you at a certain point are the own director of your own fate. But random negative things happen all the time. But yeah. And maybe I need to think about creating like a more distraction-free environment, and kind of digitally detox a little bit. Yeah, I don't think anything would happen. I think in particular, the internet and my server going down in particular, that constantly pop up as issues, have to do with the experimental IT nature of what I do as a hobby. The fact that I have an experimental Linux server and it goes down are one and the same, because I don't 100% have all the procedure and all the setup down the right way it should be. The fact that I have a DDWRT router that has custom firmware on it is the reason why I very often have to fix it or reset it. Whereas if I had just a basic router with way less features, it would probably just do that one dumb thing that it does and nothing else. And certainly I gloss over the fact that I have benefits from having a custom router with custom firmware, like ad blocking and more functionality, a lot more functionality. And when my server is not completely failing, there's benefits to it being a backup server and being able to act as its own kind of Dropbox system. So you have to take the good with the bad, and you have to recognize the good with the bad, and perhaps I'm often too negative and I only recognize the bad. But to get away from that rambling, here's the TechRaptor article. The Future of Gaming PS5 event has been postponed. No new date has been set, apparently. There's not a lot, I think, that needs to be shown. The real question, I guess, becomes at what point does the no new date for the PlayStation 5 event become a problem? Because if the event happened a week before Black Friday, that's fine. If it happens on Black Friday or after, I think at that point you've got a real problem, particularly if PlayStation has been completely quiet up until that point. Because the last thing we had heard was that the PlayStation 5 was on schedule still to be released this holiday. If it's not really going to be scheduled to release this holiday, then they need to announce it. They need to tell people, like, yeah, that's not happening anymore. And the second they do that, I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft says, well, our console is still coming out during the holiday. And this is probably what Sony is trying to do, is that they're trying to just kick the can down the road and hope that Microsoft will cancel the release of their hardware before they have to cancel the release of the PlayStation 5. And I don't know if that's really going to work, because I don't think Microsoft really would care too much if the PlayStation Series X came out in very limited quantities and still made that launch date without actually selling any, because it is much more of a console, the Series X, compared to the PlayStation 5, that feels like it's just a new iteration of the Xbox One. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Series X has very few launch titles anyways, whereas the PlayStation 5 is just a brand new number, and it's going to try to sell itself as a brand new console, and it needs a lot more launch titles, and it needs a whole new generation of people willing to go buy the fifth game in a fifth game console in the series. This should win the game for us next time. Next, we have a game on Steam called Pepsi Kicks Cities. I don't know how you pronounce that. It looks like it's a SimCity clone. It looks way too green. It feels like it has like a green tint over every screenshot for no reason. And it just kind of looks generic. Not a lot of options being shown as far as the menus. It's $5.09. It's English and Spanish. Yeah. I don't see anything there of major interest. I don't think I'd be playing too many City Skylines clones or SimCities clones anyways, since I didn't like City Skylines too much. On top of it being kind of a hassle to play because of the small text. I still didn't really like City Skylines that much. I guess I'll mention it. It's not even gonna load at this rate. The parallel core for the Nintendo 64 emulator that came out and is kind of sweeping the emulator group now has Android support and Intel iGPU improvements. I don't even know what Intel iGPU is, but also it is being apparently ported now directly into Mupen 64, which, okay, that they're making big moves to go to this parallel core. The one thing I will say though is that even if you had the newest Raspberry Pi 4, which is now an 8GB version that is about $75, so you're really losing the money there that you at one time were saving by buying a Raspberry Pi. But yeah, even if you're going down the path of getting the 8GB version, that's not really going to help you emulate Nintendo 64 games on a Raspberry Pi. Maybe the next generation will be a slightly more powerful processor with more capability for parallel processing, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it just doesn't get there. There is this growing division between people who are using Raspberry Pis as small desktop computers and as emulators, and people who were the intended audience for Raspberry Pis, which was to be for people that were doing small projects and experimental educational builds. And more the division between buying a Raspberry Pi Zero stick for $5 compared to buying a Raspberry Pi 4 with 8 gigabits of RAM, which that RAM really wouldn't help you as far as emulating games much anyways. That is just getting to be a really $70 divide there. But yeah, finally this article opened parallel LLEI. Andrew supported Intel iGPU improvements. So yeah, you probably could play this on your phone fairly well though, if you just want to play Mario 64 or other Nintendo 64 games. On an Android phone, that works fairly well. You could probably get an old Android phone for less than $75 if you're careful about it. Alright. We're getting wrecked here. And I didn't need to do that. I should have sacrificed this, and then I could have had this on the field to defend against that. Yeah, I played poorly. So if I lose, it's because I deserve to lose. Let's see. Black. Land. This. Okay. Next. All attack. So if I could just get 4 more damage. I should be alright. Just need 3 more damage before he can do 5 damage.
I know my responsibility.
And he's gonna try and do that, so I'm gonna do this instead. Now, can we turn this around? Because we still need... We have like 6 here. And... So, 2, 4, 6, 7. We would need 3 more creatures on the field. And I'm not sure we can do this. We'll see. Okay, sacrifice this one. To do that. And what I'm gonna do is sacrifice this one, and then that afterlife should give us enough to activate here, which, let's see, puts us 1 short. So we play this, then we take this one and put it on top. And put that on the field. No, we're not ready yet. We need 1 more damage.
I'll protect you.
Well, let's go ahead and activate our health then and get our health back up. Excuse me. Next story we have, Sony fixes the Chinese PlayStation Store backdoor exploit. Chinese PlayStation Now is more locked down. Apparently there was some kind of exploit there. I couldn't really care less as to what it was, but you can seek out that article if that interests you. Next we have a game on Steam called Hide and Seek, which, on top of having some of the worst cases of dark screenshot syndrome I've ever seen, with just entire sections blacked out, the parts that are showing look like MS Paint graphics for $1.99 English, allegedly full audio. Yeah, there's nothing there of interest. Alright, let's go ahead and tap this guy, since there's no reason not to tap him. Okay. Go and kill that guy. Go and put that on the field. Go and put that on the field. Yep. Might as well do that. Although that probably isn't as smart of a move as it might seem. Yeah, not sure I played well there, because, let's see, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I could sacrifice this again, and then I would have had enough to activate the 10. But until I can get his health down a couple, I'm just going to constantly have this problem. Next, we have a game on Steam called Disc Ninja, which looks to me like it's a VR game where you throw discs, but I'm not actually seeing the discs fly. Are you controlling a disc and playing disc golf? Yeah, it does seem like you are controlling the discs and playing disc golf, and maybe you're not controlling them after it leaves your hand. I'm not sure if ninja golf and if disc golf and ninjas merge perfectly as a concept, but it's not a terrible thought, certainly, for a game. Early access requires VR, $17.99. Seems about the right price for a VR game, which is to say it's too expensive. But I'll put this on the follow list. So at least we'll have one game today that made it to the follow list.
I have a plan.
TechRaptor has a review for the game Crumbling World. Let's see, let's jump right to the bottom. It looks like I think we even saw this article before. Yeah, they gave it a 3.0. So yeah, that's just a old news article that I opened a second time. Next we have a game called Drone Wars VR, which doesn't seem like anything. You know, I've just realized that my whole timer trick doesn't even work unless I had a third monitor, which I think I probably might step up to a third monitor at some point, because my second monitor is looking at the games. Drone Wars VR is free, English only. It doesn't look particularly interesting, but heck, if you have a VR headset, you might as well check it out. Yeah. But because my second monitor is the monitor I'm looking at all these games with, there's no opportunity to bring up OBS and see the counter happening. So I'm still pretty much using my clock on my phone, which is fine because I started both and will continue to use both as I try to test all of this and see how it really is going to work out, if it's really going to work out. If this guy stays on the field, I think we've won. Maybe. Next we have a game called Einstein's Riddle, which this is, I think, a weird deductive reasoning game that I've seen this before, certainly, but it was like an old DOS game. It's $1.69. It's English and German. I'm gonna put it on the follow list because I think it is like a deductive reasoning logic game. I don't know if it's particularly fun to play more than once, and honestly it probably should just be, it's too complicated of a game if it's the puzzle that I'm thinking about, because you couldn't have it as like a hacking mini game or anything like that. It would just fall completely flat. It's too long. You couldn't even really have it as like the final puzzle in an experience, because it's too long and too complicated. Alright, I'm gonna stop him from doing whatever he wants to do here, because if I don't, I'm gonna somehow end up losing. Meanwhile, if I do this, and then do this, I could have done this earlier, I think, too, and played another one of these, but I don't think it matters. He really pushed me on this one. He tried really hard to to win. So I have to applaud the challenge there. He wasn't just goofing around or giving up. Let's see. Open Critic has another article here. EA is donating $1 million to racial justice charities. They are putting their money where their mouth is, but in all fairness, and this is the problem with any of these actions, Humble Bundle is kind of the only one immune from this criticism. EA is not particularly well known for treating its customer well, and it has like a bunch of bad press around it and a lot of microtransactions. So they've clearly made more than $1 million in microtransactions and just being a poor customer custodian, I guess might be a good word to use. So it does just not help their PR when you think, yeah, EA's not that good. And arguably, since EA is mostly known for selling EA sports games, they've really ripped off a lot of minorities, people, African Americans in particular, who love to play the football games and the basketball games, and have gotten just increasingly terrible experiences because of that. So yeah, I would say African Americans in particular have had a slightly worse experience because of EA in the video gaming world than non-African Americans who, well, a great comparison would be like Asians that are over there playing visual novels and JRPGs from all those companies have gotten probably ripped off a little bit, but not as much as the terrible quality EA sports games. So if they really wanted to support their communities, their customers, they should first and foremost start making good products. And then you have this next post, which is just laughable from Activision Blizzard. Today, as always, we support all those who stand up against racism and inequality. This is a lie. It's just straight up a lie. Because remember, the whole Hong Kong protest person who got banned and his winnings taken away, and eventually, due to major outcry, they paid him his winnings and shortened his ban. But yeah, they totally in no way have supported Hong Kong's protest and movement towards democracy and not being a part of mainland China. And that is equality. And I don't know, maybe from a Chinese perspective, it might even be a little bit racism. I wouldn't be surprised if mainland Chinese people are maybe racism's the wrong word, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't like Hong Kong citizens because they're Hong Kong citizens. But it definitely touches on that. So Activision Blizzard doing this blackout post for just brownie points. They're not donating anything as far as I know. It just highlights how hypocritical they are, and they were immediately called out on this. Now maybe if they said there's no place for this in our society, and then they go and didn't add or any society, that would have been different. But they totally have accepted that there is room for inequality in Chinese society. So yeah, I mean, just stupid how they did not see that coming. And really the only way Activision Blizzard could have put out something like that is to say, we have had a long and difficult conversation. We've reevaluated our stance due to the current events. Due to that, we're lifting the ban on the 2 presenters and all the other people who supported the Hong Kong protests. We are now fully supporting the Hong Kong protester, and we are supporting the movement that is happening now in the United States, which includes in part the Black Lives Matter movement. Like they really would have had to admit that they were doing a 180 and that they were wrong in the past. And if they're not going to do that, they might as well just kept their mouth shut, because they really just make them look like they're just a hypocritical corporation that will say anything to make a few more sales or gain the favor. And make no mistake, that is all these corporations. Like, even the ones that are just donating like $1 million, like, they weren't donating $1 million 2 weeks ago. They weren't donating $1 million 2 months ago. They're only doing it now because of either a new honest opinion that is held by the corporations, or more likely because they think it's good PR. And that's inherently the problem with the idea. If corporations are people, they are by default the worst people that should be potentially in jail, people that should be potentially in insane asylums, people that should be ostracized and homeless. And if anybody should be homeless, yeah, corporations as people should be homeless. Like, if corporations are people, they are evil people. And that's the real thing to take from that, because they are nothing but greedy. They are nothing but cynical. They are nothing but the worst combination of every bad idea that could be combined together. But yeah, I don't want to get into too much of a rant. This is indestructible. Well, if it's indestructible, we might as well, I think, still choose to attack it. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Magical Mysteries come to the Academy, the first riddle this month, which is Harry Potter meets Professor Layton, apparently. This art style, this kind of early 3D art style, seems to be gaining some popularity, probably because this is a cell phone game that is also coming out on Steam. But yeah, seems like we're kind of going in circles as far as I probably would call this somewhere close to a 3rd generation 3D polygonal. This isn't like 7 polygons Lara Croft Tomb Raider game, but it also does not look like the hyper realistic 3D imagery we've seen before. And yeah, this doesn't look like a terrible idea for a game, based on its few screenshots, but I wouldn't be surprised if it really is nothing. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Project Cars 3 has been announced for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC, due out this summer. So another racing game. And yeah, the graphics look good. For some reason that thumbnail didn't look particularly good. And yeah, you would definitely want to be careful about the thumbnail on your YouTube video if you're selling a Cars game. Because that first impression, those visuals, are the big deal. TechRaptor has an article. New Gwent expansion Master Mirror debuts June 20th, 2020. It's not the last expansion, and I'm a little surprised that they're still making expansions. I would have thought that they would have abandoned Gwent, but I guess what they're going to do is probably keep it around until at least the
Be wary of the ground you walk on.
they're going to probably keep it around until the Cyberpunk 2077 game comes out. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is some kind of card game or side game in Cyberpunk 2077 also that they try to use to replace it. Because I totally could see CD Projekt Red wanting to have some more smaller things that they can sell or try to sell. Let's see. This card will give you avatars and borders and card backs. But it doesn't seem like it is really giving you new cards by the looks of it. Or at least they're not talking about any new cards. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna win here on this one. So yeah, I'm a little confused as far as whether or not that expansion actually is going to give you any new cards or not. Gamma Sutra has a blog here for game developers. 10 quick store page improvements to get your game ready for the Steam Summer Sale. Which, in all fairness, there has been some major changes probably over the last year or two. So they want them to fix their user tags, rewrite a short description, add supported features. Probably they should remove some things that aren't true. Clean up your graphical assets, like screenshots. They kind of changed the resolution of some of the images and stuff. Rearrange your screenshots. Isn't a terrible idea. Clean up your trailer. Answer negative reviews nicely. Yeah, negative reviews in general not really covered or touched upon. Pick a price that will get attention. So apparently you can set up a price that you want it to be during the Steam Summer Sale. And don't look like a dead game. And then try a new summer capsule image. Which, try a new capsule image or putting a summer overlay on it gives a message that your game is regularly being updated and worth the purchase. Interesting. So yeah, not a bad idea, certainly. It would be certainly helpful to people if they are shopping for games during the Steam Summer Sale to be able to know whether or not a specific game has been abandoned a few years ago, or if the person who worked on it and created it is still around, even if they're only around doing some general maintenance stuff instead of actually adding any new content. Moving on, TechCraft has an article. Pokemon Go Galarian forums have finally arrived. So, okay. More Pokemon Go stuff. For people who are interested in Pokemon Go. Let's see. I think I've lost though, so let's just go ahead and concede. Save ourselves some time. Yeah. If anything, the number one lesson I'm learning is just give up when you're losing in Magic. Just save yourself the frustration and just move on to the next thing. Next we have a game on Steam called The Last Day of Defense VR, which looks like it is almost like a VR real-time strategy game, but it's labeled as a tower defense game, so I guess that's really what it is. And the graphics don't look interesting, and I don't know why you would want a VR game that you're looking down on. It's $9.99 English only, and yeah, I don't want to play a tower defense game. Probably am failing to mulligan enough. Maybe I was mulliganing a little too much before, and now I'm not mulliganing enough. Tech Raptor has an article here. Phogs, P-H-O-G-S, release date has delay, pushing back launch to later this year. Which looks like some kind of cat dog game. Yeah, I remember this. There's actually kind of a large number of games that announced themselves and then I've forgotten about them, and now they're like announcing a new announcement date, or they're coming out, or they're delayed, or they're getting canceled. And yeah, it is getting kind of silly to see a game that you saw talked about or teased from Gamatsu 6 months ago, and then you've forgotten it for 6 months, and then you come back and it's finally actually out and available. This should be like a full-on, just immediate win. Next, we have a game on Steam called Prophecy, which looks like it's some kind of arena battler with cards. Looks really like a mess, honestly. It looks like a Chinese game where they're mixing 2 or 3 ideas just badly. It's early access, it's free to play, it's English only. So maybe it isn't a Chinese game, maybe it's just a mess of a game from a Western developer. Regardless, that doesn't really change my feelings on what it looks like, and yeah, that initial sale is clearly a failure. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Semantically Muffled, which looks like it's a top-down twin-stick shooter, and it looks like it is just kind of not terrible pencil sketches, animations, but the tile sets and the images in the background look pretty bad. It's $7.74, which is too expensive. Bunch of languages, third-party EULA. Yeah, I don't see anything here that interests me. Yeah, fast-paced top-down twin-stick shooter game is how it describes itself. Let's see, we have for Gamatsu, Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World, Labyrinth of Hope, and The Gathering of Adventures, plus launches April 27th in Japan. Konosuba is a anime that is, I believe, based on a light novel series. I think Konosuba itself actually is a initialism from the actual name of the light novel, which translates a lot easier in Japanese than it does English. Or it's a shortened form, if not an initialism exactly, of the light novel. Konosuba has an anime series I don't think is terrible, to say the least. It seems like it's gotten a couple seasons. Seems like it's still gonna be able to do its thing. Yeah, you might as well just concede that there's no coming back from this. There's no way you block 4 things attacking without a full board clear. Let's see, now I can do that. And so even if he tries anything crazy, he still loses. Let's see. So he wants to block with that? Fine. Then we just sacrifice it and win. And there we go. We're at gold tier 4. And ideally we get to platinum. And ideally we get to a high tier of platinum or higher. We've not even been going too long. We like 2 hours and 15 minutes and we have 7 victories. We haven't really been trying to play green spells. So I probably should, if I start getting a losing streak, play some green cards. Just as that. But let's do that right now, actually. We'll go over to our green test and we'll just play regularly. And we'll try to magically refill our luck inventory, our luck juice, as it were, by losing some games in regular play and then come back and play ranked. Of course, none of these things really exist, but it does feel like if you are feeling emotionally drained after playing a game for a while, taking a break, playing a different way does help you have more focus and pay more attention. And when you have more focus and pay attention, that's when you tend to find something that seems like luck but was actually just circumstantial. So yeah. TechRaptor has an article here. Konami is returning to third-party publishing on consoles and PCs. Who cares? Like, who in their right mind would do business with Konami? As terrible as Konami has treated its own employees, as terrible as Konami has treated its properties, you would have to just not care one bit about who you're doing business with if you're going to do business with Konami. Like, it is obvious that any game developer, any owner of any intellectual property, should do no business with Konami and should blacklist them because they have done so badly in the past. And the only way I could see any justifications to do business with Konami is if they came out publicly, apologized for a lot of mistakes, and said that they're doing something different, they're doing something new, and they're not just going to continue down the path of selling terrible games and pachinko games. And they probably would need to fire somebody, honestly. They need to get rid of a few people at the top to say that this is a whole new person in charge. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here. AI Kiss is coming to PS4 and PS Vita on September 24th in Japan. Interesting that a PS Vita game is still being made. This is, of course, a visual novel. I don't remember what I means. I think it means love. Yeah, it means I love you in Japanese. Deals 2 damage. Yeah. So, like a love kiss as compared to like a friendly kiss or a familiar kiss. That's what I'm getting from that. Put this on the field and put this on the field. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article here. Rovio acquires and rebrands Darkfire Heroes developer to Darkfire Games. So, the Angry Birds people acquiring something. Up to one other country blocks it this turn if able. Okay. So we want that on the field. See, this has trample, and this, with this, against something like this, could do a lot of damage. Meanwhile, do I want to attack with anything? No. Let's see. Next, we have Gamatsu Akagi 2 is coming to the PS4 September 24th. A romance visual novel sequel ported from Intergram. I don't know if I recognize that company. So visual novels still getting announced. Still happening. See, destroy target enchantment. Destroy artifact. Or destroy exile target card from the graveyard. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Paradox is going to sign a collective bargaining agreement with the Swedish labor unions, which is to say that Paradox is going to actually allow for union representation. That's what the collective bargaining agreement is in their companies, which I'm not sure how much of a choice they really had in any of that. If I was to guess, like, it was probably either they signed this collective bargaining agreement or everybody walks. Probably lost here, but I am just playing green cards, so it doesn't matter so much. So yeah, labor unions stronger certainly in Europe than in the United States. So the union in question is called Union In, UNIONEN, and another union, I guess, called SACO. So, and they will be bargaining for pay, benefits, and responsibilities, or work conditions, as it tends to be the case. In the United States, if you strike in most states over pay, then a lot of states can still, the companies can still fire everybody and replace them with scabs, non-union workers. So very rarely do you see unions in the United States go on strike for the actual pay as much as you see them go on strike for work conditions. And particularly in video games, well, it's not about the pay. The pay is decent enough. It's not great compared to any other kind of programmer by any means. But the problem is the work conditions. It's the crunch. It's the other issues. Well, I'm gonna lose, but I can take a few turns to lose. Let's see. The story continues. This is the Stellaris and Europa Universalis developer, and they wanted to make the workers, quote, feel valued and empowered as it continues to expand. It only applies to Paradox staffers working in Sweden, which excludes, I guess, anyone else if there is a Paradox office somewhere else. So it'll be an interesting example of unionization, kind of one of the first examples I would imagine of unionization in the video game industry. And there certainly are some arguments that could be made about how unions in general might be better suited for monotonous labor work like automobile manufacturing versus artistic work like programming, but I don't know if there's really that much of a difference even in that. Like, you have to be fairly skilled to be able to work a car manufacturing line. So, yeah, I kind of feel like unions benefit pretty much anybody as long as they are a good union. And that's the big if. If it's a horrible, corrupt union, they don't benefit people. The assumed stereotype of a union worker being a lazy mobster who doesn't really do anything and gets way overpaid is not going to happen in the video game world anytime soon. Like, we're not going to have programmers that are allegedly programming games taking 10 years to get it done and never really accomplishing anything. I've just got a cycle here. I've got nothing else I can do. Just exiling cards from the graveyard for no reason. Yeah. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Elite Dangerous Odyssey expansion has been announced. That's yet another game that I kind of had just forgotten existed. There's quite a lot of them, certainly. It does become a problem. Yeah, it becomes kind of a major issue. This creature then kills one of those. So in 4 turns this guy wins, whereas in more than 4 turns this guy would win if we just went for a straight face race. Take Raptor has the same article about Paradox Interactive signing the collective bargaining agreement, although in this instance they just label the title as to sign a CBA as if everybody would know what that is, which is not realistic. Excuse me. Must be something in the air. I'm sneezing more today than normal. And I can see the beginning of the end, but I wanted to also do some wishlist cleanup. I'm hoping to get it all done before the summer event, but I wouldn't be surprised if I actually don't. We'll just keep on doing this. There was no good opportunity for a draft today, by the way. Like, it did occur to me that maybe I should do a draft, but I don't want to do a Necro draft. I'll wait till next week and see if we can do a different expansion draft. The irony is going to be that we somehow just stupidly wander into the core 2021 expansion, and I don't even have enough to buy 20 packs, which is kind of where I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'm going to buy like 25 packs. You know, they could probably help themselves a little bit if they didn't have a star pointing downward. The overprotective parents out there who think Magic the Gathering is Devil Worship kind of doesn't help if you've got a star pointing downward. Of course, then in this image you'd have the pentagon pointing downward, but yeah. And it wouldn't be as nice looking. I imagine Wizards of the Coast don't care. They've probably heard those complaints for decades and just don't listen to them anymore, which is probably the right response. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Creative Assembly is launching a Total War Saga Troy for free on the Epic Games Store, which probably means it's not very good, if I was to guess. And that's pretty much all I'm gonna say about that, because I have no interest otherwise. TechRaptor has an article. Sega announces micro Game Gear line with 4 devices. Now these are incredibly small, and so these are like 1-inch screens. They have about 4 games on each of them. They're only being sold in Japan. These clearly are just like keychain games that even if you gave it to like a 4 or 5-year-old, it would still be too small for them. There's really no reason why it would only have 4 games. You could probably get all the Game Gear games in total onto. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2 gigabytes would be more than enough room. And it's just not a good product, frankly. They should have just brought out a new Game Gear that was thinner and had better battery life and just had as many of the Game Gear Sega games that they could. It should just be, if they want to give it 4 different shell things, that's fine. It's also worth mentioning, at this size, I bet all of these buttons are terrible to play with. I bet it feels horrible that they're really low quality buttons and D-pads. So the black console has Sonic, Royal Stone, Puro 2, and Outrun. The red console has Columns, GG Shinobi, and Megami Tensei Gaiden Last Bible Special. So sounds like 2 of the same games. The yellow one has Not So Pure Ari no Urazu, haven't heard of that, Shining Force 1, 2, and Final Conflict. And then the blue one is Baku Baku Animal Sekai Shikugakari Senshuken, never heard of that. Gunstar Heroes, Sonic and Tails, Sylvia and Tail. So even if you wanted the Sonic games, particular for like a Western audience, you're not really going to get a good experience there. Let's just do a face race. And then apparently they're gonna have a big window micro accessory that would magnify the 1-inch screen slightly. It's really just a terrible experience. It's even smaller than like the Game Boy Micro, whatever that is. That what this is? The Game Boy Micro, or just some special? Yeah, GBA Game Boy Advance Micro. But you can see it's even smaller than that if those sizes are accurate. Yeah, just a terrible product. Sega did alright. I wouldn't say they did amazingly well, but they did alright with their Sega mini console and all the little plastic toy accessories that came with it. But even that, the lineup was weak, and it didn't particularly sell as well in the West as it did in Japan. And you would just expect Sega to ideally and hopefully have something more. Let's see. I'm gonna put this on the field. So here's a question. When something mutates, does it cost? Still count towards a devotion. This says we have a devotion of 4 to green. I see 3 and then 4. So yeah, the devotion still does cost. Does this guy have trample? Need this guy to have trample. Otherwise I'm just gonna attack and die. No good reason. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Roguelike City Builder Against the Storm announced for 2021. Which, honestly, I have no interest whatsoever in hearing about games coming out in 2021. Like, right now we are so in the mess as far as just having games that were supposed to come out in 2020 not coming out. Let's see. Well, I could clear the board. And I could do this and still keep it alive, probably. 4, 6, 10. Let's go ahead and let's not do that. Let's just end our turn. TechRaptor has the same article. Frostpunk reveals On the Edge, its final expansion. I think we talked about this already. Another game I'd kind of forgotten existed. And I don't know if there's really any relevancy to want to play a city management game like Frostpunk. Even though the setting and environment was slightly unique and different. It just didn't catch enough people's attention. OpenCritic has an article here. Pokemon Sword and Shield's Isle of Armor expansion launches later this month. Now, I hadn't forgotten that Pokemon Sword and Shield existed, but I might as well have. I certainly haven't heard anything new to be said about it. There's not even any controversy around this. I would imagine that Nintendo and Game Freaks probably would be very happy right about now if there was any talk whatsoever, even if it was just controversy talk around the Pokemon Shield and Sword series. Man, I'm seemingly having less and less success pronouncing things. I did not realize I was so close to dying there. Not paying enough attention. That's fine. Come on. Game? It just didn't animate that screen. Interesting. Alright, so we got our losses. So now let's go back to ranked. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. Strategy RPG Banner of the Maid is coming to the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch in 2020. Azure Flame Studio developed a strategy RPG. So yeah, looks like some... I wouldn't even really call this straight up anime girls. This is kind of a more European Japanese style. Like European inspired Japanese style art style. I don't have a trailer or anything here. And clearly it is some anime girls with, or some cleavage focused gameplay. I mulligan once. Yeah, you can always trust the Japanese to have some focus on boobs. They are, whether they're big or small, they seem to like them all. Of course, that's not something unique to Japanese people. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Mardek, which looks like it's just a Chinese RPG, and it looks terribly drawn, which is like a marker. $8.99, English only. Yeah, there's nothing there. I did try to curate some of this stuff, some of the articles and stuff, but there is still quite a lot that was not fully curated and could have been curated more, I think. There's this Bloomberg article. It seems like we're going to get more and more video game articles from Bloomberg. The game publisher cancels a contract with the developer and then tries to poach the entire team. This was Take-Two. 3 months after losing a deal with Take-Two, Star Theory Games was out of business. So, Star Theory Games was in the process of negotiating to sell their company to Take-Two, and Take-Two at some point decided to stop negotiating, is my understanding of the story. And this is from Jason Schreier, who worked, I believe, at Kotaku before. So, and honestly, he was, I think, a little bit controversial, as most people that work at Kotaku are. So maybe you take all of this story with a spoonful of sugar. But there's two ways that I think you could take this story. You could take it as it's written, that Take-Two negotiated in pretty bad faith to purchase Star Theory Games, decided they didn't like the terms, canceled the project that they had contracted with them to make Kerbal Space Program 2, and then emailed all the employees via LinkedIn at Take-Two, asking them to join their new studio that they just started up. On the other hand, you could take it the other way, and you could say maybe Take-Two's not so much the bad guys as they are just prudent business people. The negotiations may have broken down because the owners of Star Theory Games were asking for an unrealistic amount of money, and the owners of Star Theory Games were just trying to cash out. And Take-Two said, no, we can't do business with these people because they're shady, because they're dishonest, but we would like the employees to have jobs, so let's start a new thing. If you look at it from that perspective, Take-Two didn't just cancel the project. They started their own company. That takes money. That takes effort. And it feels illogical. It's very possible that it's the case, but it feels very illogical to just assume that Take-Two is run by so so emotionally driven people that they just wanted their own studio's name on Kerbal Space Program, to the point where they would be willing to do all these shenanigans. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. They probably did try to negotiate. There was probably mistakes and arguments that happened on both sides, and there probably was a kind of ridiculous poaching action there. But I can't really, as someone who's always trying to look out for the little man, can't really complain that somebody's trying to hire an employee. Like that's not really a bad thing. That Take-Two wants to hire these video game developers and pay them and have them work on video games. That's not really bad. Maybe Take-Two is bad because they negotiated in bad faith. Maybe Star Theory Games negotiated in bad faith. And when you further get into it, and I'm just taking this from my understanding of the companies, and I'm not even going to read this article because it's way too long. So I could be totally wrong, and somebody might point out specific facts. But this story is basically coming from the lips of the people who own Star Theory Games, which is not Squad or Squid. What was it? Was it called Squid or Squad? Which was the actual programmers of Kerbal Space Program 1. And pretty much everybody who worked and programmed on Kerbal Space Program 1 were laid off when Squad was purchased. So there is more actual evidence that the people in charge of Kerbal Space Program 2, or the development of that game, are not particularly the people that should be in charge. Let's see. Let's do nothing. They don't need to attack. Now, the one thing I would say is you should, before you do anything else, you should negotiate a non-poaching agreement if such a thing is legal, which maybe it isn't. But they're probably, before you get into any contract negotiations to sell your company or incorporate a company or something, there should be something that says, if you as a competitor, if this contract agreement falls apart, this merger falls apart, if you hire anybody within 6 months to 2 years that worked as an employee at our company, you will pay a fee of, let's say, $50,000. Like $50,000 per employee that is poached. There should be some kind of negotiation clause in that, and clearly there wasn't. And I don't know if that's a non-standard thing that isn't done, but that would be the case, and that would be what I would say should happen. And it should be a burden on Take-Two to pay a fee for, if they want to eat that $50,000 and hire people, that's fine. It shouldn't be a non-compete agreement that says employees of Star Games aren't able to go work for a different video game company. And usually it is these non-compete agreements that get written, and they should be illegal, because there's way more of a power imbalance between a corporation and an employee when signing employment contracts, and these employment contracts in the United States really should be standardized and highly regulated a lot more than they are. Non-compete should be for the most part, I think I can't even think of a single good instance where they make sense and at all. They should probably just not be allowed at all. Like, maybe there is this argument that if you go work for a company for 6 months and you get trained to work at that company and be a much better employer, you should stay with that company for a while. But even in that scenario where non-competes actually start to make sense, there's just so many other factors. If you go work at a company for 6 months and you get trained on how to be a good employee or use software or do industry standard procedures, and then the work environment is just terrible, you should still be able to leave and go work somewhere else. It should just be an assumed risk of all employers that their employees will leave if they're treated badly, and employers should always be under that fear that they have to treat their employees well, or the time and money they invest in their employees will be flushed down the toilet when they go and leave and go and work for a competitor. That's inherently the idea of capitalism, and yet that's not what capitalism has become in the United States. Is that it's all about giving more advantages to large corporations. Man, I should have tapped that first, but I resolved all instead. Moving on, we have a game on Gematsu here. The Coma 2 Vicious Sisters launches June 19th for PS4 and Switch, later in 2020 for Xbox One. This is yet another game. This is probably the oldest game that has been announced, because this was like a year ago. This is a Korean horror game that's sort of a visual novel and sort of an adventure, and that definitely will be what I try to target more and more, is things that have some visual novel elements but are also other things and have other gameplay mechanics. Do we have enough to win? Yeah. Gold tier 4. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's easier to get up to gold tier 3 than it is to get to gold tier 4. Because all the people who are playing badly but just lucked into gold tier 4 probably are somewhat locked into it at that point. I don't think you can fall down. So I could easily be playing with worse players than what I was playing as far as silver tier 1. You do get disadvantage, I suppose, but you can't like hover over and see the companion. So let's see, can you do this? No, I guess it's over here. So yeah. So now that companions are a thing, it does, I guess, behoove you to check the battlefield before you even start to think about mulliganing. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Eat My Shuriken and Die, which is too aggressive a name, and it looks like it's an attempt at a Smash Brothers clone and doesn't look very interesting. It's $2.99, English full audio. Why, I don't know why you wouldn't just call it Eat My Shuriken, or that kind of comes off as if it's not even an English writer naming it, even though it's an English only game. We really have only put one game on the follow list, and there's a decent chance that'll be it for today. Next we have Sea of Thieves, which is rated very positively, but I don't really feel like there's a lot of gameplay in it. and I don't think you can play it single player. It's $39.99, but then it has a ton of purchase in it, items available in game, and in-app purchases, and then it requires a Xbox Live account, which is not really asking too much, but probably is asking a little too. It still kind of sucks on Steam to have an Xbox Live account, even for crossplay. And while you could play a single player, I don't see any reason why I'd want to play Save Things, so I'm not even going to put it on the follow list. I think I can make the easy decision there and just say no. Put this here and go ahead and attack here. Next, we have a game on Steam from Digipen called Quest 4 Papa Reloaded, which is a free student project. Again, I'm not sure why it would be called Quest 4 though. Looks like it's a top-down twin-stick shooter. While I do want to cover student projects, I am now going to be a lot more critical of them. Like, third-party EULAs don't make sense, really, for a student project that's free. And if a game just looks terrible, this doesn't look terrible, but doesn't look particularly great, I'm not going to be willing to play them if it's just a student project but looks terrible. That being said, I'll put this one on the wish list. And yeah, since it's a student project, I will put it on the wish list. And we'll see if I ever actually get around to playing any of those games. That is the bigger if, for sure. Next, we have a game on Steam called Hearts Island. What's weird about the Digipen game is that was like the only game that was published, apparently. Either that or what's on Steam's Twitter feed is not getting all the games again. Yeah, this looks like a black and white artistic kind of walking simulator. We've seen a few of these. I'm not sure if they're actually worth playing. 59 cents, English full audio. I guess I'll put it on the follow list. We'll see what people have to say about it. Almost certainly people won't have anything super positive to say about it, and then that will be an easy game to just dismiss. Let's see. Alright. Next we put this on the field, and I'll attack. And so this guy's gonna do 3, and that'll do nothing. Next, we have a game on Steam called Nightmare Simulator 2 Rebirth, which is probably just an asset flip horror first-person shooter. I guess the real question here would be, oh, it features cutscenes and autosave, great. We should see if there's a Nightmare Simulator 1. Yes, we do have one. And it came out in 2018. And nobody reviewed it. So, obviously the sequel has no relevance. Obviously the original has no relevance. It's then kind of pointless to try to even think about putting it on the follow list. Alright, everybody attack. Might as well just sacrifice that. I was gonna win anyways, but solidify that victory. Yep. And we don't want to counter chickens before they're hatched, but gold tier 3 does seem like it might be an easy climb. Hey, if we can get up to like gold tier 1 fairly easily, and then it's just a struggle for a week or two to get higher, that's not a terrible thought. It's not a terrible outcome. Gamatsu has an article here. The Japanese tech journalist teases huge scoop on the level of Wired's PS4 article on June 4th, on the June 4th issued in Weekly Famitsu. This has been updated now, so let's talk about what this huge scoop is. The huge scoop teased by him is that Sega is doing research and development on Fog Gaming, a potential new game platform that could be utilized by Japanese arcades. Fog Gaming would repurpose arcades across Japan as part of the cloud, as well as channel arcade game machines, CPUs, and GPUs, resulting in lower costs. This would provide ultra-low latency, and the concept is similar to fog computing. Players would be able to play and enjoy high-quality games, and arcades would be able to make money even after business hours. So, cloud gaming, apparently, for arcade machines. That's not even what I thought fog gaming meant. I thought fog gaming meant they were going to have actual fog in the arcades and projectors to do like holograms and do kind of like a laser hologram show. That would be more interesting to me. That's not huge news. That was way over teased. That announcement by far. While it might be slightly bigger news for Japanese people, Japanese arcades, and Sega certainly owns a significant number of Japanese arcades, it really, to a Westerner's eyes, just sounds like it's more of Sega doubling down on arcades in Japan and less of Sega caring about actually making console games or anything like that. The idea of cloud computers running arcade games instead of a arcade box and a CPU in that, I mean, that's true, I suppose, as long as you have guaranteed internet, which would be the case in Japan and definitely not the case in the United States. You could have some dumb, cheap computers inside every arcade cabinet connecting to some network cloud CPUs, something like Stadia running around, but that's just going to be a small savings. In the end, the problem with arcades is the amount of money you make per square foot. And the amount of money you make per square foot is just going to constantly go down as fewer and fewer people are going to be willing to shove quarter after quarter, let's be honest, dollar after dollar, into an arcade game that's designed to take your money and give you the shortest amount of entertainment as possible for that money. Arcades only really exist as a nice, different experience for little kids and a nostalgia experience for adults. They would be smarter to go down the barcade concept and sell alcohol and have have a bar that just has arcade machines in it, or have a burger joint that has arcade machines in it, and that would be smarter. But if I were Sega, I would be shutting down arcades, particularly during the pandemic, but just in general, in favor of doing something else with those businesses. Or I'd turn it into a computer cafe, cyber cafe, which then you could get the people playing StarCraft to pay all day. There's quite a lot of people that were just living inside cyber cafes in Japan, and they passed regulations in some areas to close down the cyber cafes, so it like significantly overnight increased the number of homeless people that were actually being counted in Japan, because there's just these young college kids, college dropouts that were just playing and living in cyber cafes instead of living with their families, who may have kicked them out, or being able to afford small apartments or anything like that, because everything's so expensive, particularly in Tokyo. Moving on, we have a game called The Disappearance of the Mitchells. I don't know if a story about the disappearance of an entire family is better than the disappearance of one person, because that just then seems like it's less likely that you wouldn't run into people. But for what this is, it's clearly a Dark Screenshot Syndrome horror asset flip game. It's $8.49, English full audio allegedly. Nothing there impressive. Let's see, Gamatsu has the Famitsu review scores for issue 1643. They're still really only reviewing 4 games. AO Tennis 2, 30 out of 40. Cannibal Cuisine for the Switch, 23 out of 40, particularly bad game. Jet Lancer for the Switch, 31 out of 40. And then Unreal Life for the Switch is 8/16/24, which would be 33 out of 40. They didn't put the combined score there. So yeah, none of those games are being particularly well reviewed, and I imagine we won't see any majorly good games coming out and getting reviewed by Famitsu. Gamatsu has the Game Gear Micro announcement page also. So we already talked about this. It's really just a bad idea though. Yeah. And in all fairness, both the Game Gear and the Game Boy knew that their screens were too small, because they very quickly had third-party sellers or first-party sellers selling magnifiers to make the screens bigger. But honestly, they probably were limited in the amount of battery life that they could use to lighten up and display a screen. Whereas technology today, there's really no reason that would be a problem. You could have rather large screens. Just get old cell phone screens and reuse them. Need one more mana to begin the Bolas Citadel. In worst case scenario, if I get one more mana, I can also use Taste of Death to clear the board, as long as he doesn't have more than 3 characters. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, a shoot 'em up called Flying Red Barrel, the Diary of a Little Aviator, is coming to PC on June 19th. This is a pencil sketch art style. I kind of feel like this is not as bad as some other art styles like this. The fact that they have like the eyebrows showing through the hair, it feels intentional. The lettering here feels intentional. Where a lot of times on Steam, you see these art styles and it's just like, yeah, that person couldn't draw. Whereas this seems like this person could draw and they just chose to go for more of a cartoony way of drawing things. Regardless, this is just a shoot 'em up, and yeah, I'm probably not going to ever cover any shoot 'em ups or too many of them. See, Gamma Sutra has this article. Paradox opens studio in Barcelona to focus on grand strategy development. So on top of Paradox signing the collective bargaining agreement, they opened up a new studio. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some cross negotiation there where the union was going to protest the starting of a new studio if they didn't agree to the collective bargaining agreement. Yeah, and the last thing you want to do is open a new studio and have people immediately picketing outside your new place of business. Next we have a low effort game here called the Border Collie game, which it's not a terrible idea. It's like a full motion video interactive experience where you're playing with a border collie, but it's just animated terribly. Like Nintendo Cats and Dogs, if that was better visual and on PC, I could see something like that actually selling for a few bucks. This is $1.99 in English only, and it's just like there's not enough there. Tech Raptor has that same article. The Sega Fog Gaming isn't the revolutionary reveal that was expected. Wasn't quite what we expected. So, yeah. The idea of fog gaming, though, actually even coming to the West, doesn't make sense. Fog computing, a technique that is a subset of cloud computing. Essentially, cloud computing will be used to power the arcade centers, preventing the arcade owners from having to constantly swap out machines and lowering costs overall. Alright. Additionally, it may allow them to let people game on devices even when the arcade is closed via making them available to play over short-range clouds. So people are going to be sitting outside the closed arcade playing on their cell phones. Yeah, the concept doesn't make any sense. And I would argue there's potential loss of profit here if you are just always renting these arcade cloud computers instead of owning an arcade cabinet that you could then turn around and sell. Like, it is a different model at that point. If you're paying, say, $100 even a month to have an arcade cabinet sit in your arcade, whereas you maybe paid $2,000 10 years ago for an arcade cabinet. And I guess this probably would be the difference between an arcade in Japan and an arcade in the West. Like, there's plenty of arcade cabinets in the United States and the West that have been around for 20 years. And sure, every now and then you have to fix them, but it's been pure profit for whoever purchased it if they spent like $2,000 on an arcade cabinet when it was brand new. Even pinball tables are only about $4,000 to maybe as much as $12,000 brand new. And yeah, that after that initial cost is paid up, you own the cabinet. You can sell it, you can make that money back. Here it doesn't seem like that's really going to be an option. Alright, yeah. Let's do this. Okay. Is he seriously gonna do this? He's gonna lose. What a fool. He apparently doesn't know this character. Or maybe he just knew he was gonna lose anyway, so. Alright, rank up gold tier 3. And I think we're lined up in such a way that that's it. This new chair, it does still get pretty uncomfortable, and I think that has a lot more to do with my behind than it does with the chairs after 3 hours of streaming. But it is a different experience. There's a lot more firmness and support that I feel like I'm getting. We have about 3 more things to talk about, and then I think we'll probably only have enough to do like 1 letter in the wishlist cleanup, and that's about it. TechRaptor has the same article here. Banner of the Maid is coming to consoles later this year. It's a SRPG, which, what does S stand for? I've never heard of an SRPG. Strategy RPG? I guess. They do have a trailer. Yeah, and it does look like a strategy placement. RPG set in like French Revolution times. Yep. Okay. Still looks interesting. Or at least slightly interesting. Not super interesting. TechRaptor has an article here. GTA 4 Social Club problems fixed with a new PC patch. Let's see. And the old radio stations return as well. So the music did come back. If that was a big concern for people. And this oddly might be... I think we've kind of crashed it. This oddly might be the biggest news of today. Indie advocate Kirk Scott, which let's do some things here. Let's crash out Magic, because it's not going to go anywhere. And then relaunch that. And then I tried to reload Gamma Sutra, but the image just won't load. Indie advocate Kirk Scott departs. Departs Nintendo of America. Yeah, being a part of Nintendo of America really is not much of anything. And I don't know if you really take this to mean maybe fewer indie games will be on the Switch. I doubt it. They've been going very hard down that path, and it's been fairly successful for them also. Let's see. So he was the third-party developer and publisher's relations manager. He's stepping down his role. He's held since 2015, so he's only been there about 5 years. 5 years is kind of the minimum that you're expected to work at a job, even if you hated it, if you want to be professional and get a bit of a good review. Because if you leave any earlier than 5 years, then they know you didn't get along with him. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up working for Sony Interactive Entertainment instead. Or yeah, that's pretty much, I guess, the only people that I could think of that he would really work for, unless he goes and works for like Gamma Sutra or some indie organization that promotes indie games, or Humble Bundle or something like that. I also wouldn't be surprised if he just leaves the video game industry completely. The picture I did see of him He was a younger-ish looking African American. I would say he's at worst in his early 50s. He definitely was not an old person ready to retire. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. No, the Killzone mercenary servers weren't shut down. These servers went down on accident, but they weren't shut down permanently. Internet in general still has been less than ideal, although it does seem like it's kind of settling down fairly well. So, like, I haven't had horrible experiences with the internet, but there definitely have been cases when certain things that just slow the load. Okay. Did a board clear, but it may not really affect him. All I really need to do is get most of these guys down to 10, and then the Bull Citadel wins automatically.
I leave you with one last.
Yeah, and Humble Bundles being a pain and not loading images. Also. Let's see. So he's just gonna exile my decks over and over again. Alright, so we have, let's see, a Humble Software Bundle 3, which is not games. We have RPG game development assets, which is not games. We have a City Skylines bundle. Yeah, so there's no new games bundle, as it were, from the Humble Bundle. Which then, if I can hopefully get this to load, should bring us to...
I have practiced against many. Hone your prowess.
To my Steam wishlist, and we'll do just a little bit of Steam wishlist cleanup. I think ideally, like, sure, I need 4 more victories to get all 15 victories today, but I do kind of want to always do some of that off screen. It's just too much of a hassle otherwise. It's too much setting. And I just can't put up with 4 or 5 hours of sitting in the same chair non-stop. Okay, so we were, I believe, at the F's.
Right.
So we just drag this down till I see an F. We're at D's, and yeah, we weren't at F, we were at G. We had done all the F's. Alright, there's G. And don't worry if you couldn't follow along with that. Were we really at G? And we'll see if this loads or if I'm just gonna have to scroll through it with no images. I may just have to scroll through it without any images. Nope, they loaded. Good.
You were a delectable snack.
I wish these voice sections were adjustable. Can we... Did we ever get that option? I mean... let's see what that sounds like and what that feels like. Just no more voices. Instead, just let the cards play. That feels like that's a new option. Honestly. Alright. So let's look at the games. Galgun 2, Galgun Double Piece. Not going to do anything with that. Game Soup. It's not sure how many positive reviews are here. I want to rethink that one because that looks like it is just in a collection of bad games. Gauntlet game. Gemini Root. Let's see. We don't need to look at everything. If it's not rated positive, then it's something to think about. Ghost Pirates of Vuju Island should be reconsidered. Or if it's a visual novel, it should be reconsidered. And we haven't seen any visual novels yet. Glittermitten Grove, probably not. What, $20? God Eater 2, God Eater 3. Here we have one called Golem. I think I want to play that one even though it's mixed reviewed, just because, well, I know kind of that it's not a finished game, but it was kind of nice looking, but I should rethink it, certainly. Grand Blue Fantasy, Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, I think I want to own all the GTAs, even if I'm only going to just spotlight them. They feel like something that eventually you should just own. Here we have one called Gravity Well that has no reviews. Let's see. These are hidden object games, and I think I am just going to remove all the hidden object games because I really have no desire to play in any more of those, I think, for the rest of my life. Let's see. Grisea Phantom Trigger Volume 1 rated very positively, and Volume 5 rated very positively, so we should think about this. This is probably a visual novel series. Guacamelee 2, definitely want that. Some of these Guilty Gear games, like Guilty Gear 2 Overture, that are mixed, and Guilty Gear Isuka. Yeah. I would really have to think about which of the Guilty Gears, if any of those fighting games, deserve to be on the fall list. Let's see. They probably shouldn't be on the wish list at the moment. Then you have the Hacker Evolution 2019 Remaster, which is reselling something I think I already own. We're already through the G's, so we'll just keep on going through the H's. Halo games, definitely want the Master Chief Collection. Hand of Fate 2, I wouldn't mind getting that. This is just one of those games, again, that's just never been on sale enough. This game, Hearts, is badly reviewed. Battleship is something that I'd like to get cheap. Hate Plus looks like a visual novel. Haunted looks like a point-and-click adventure. Hayden, the notorious game with the robot lady with the big butt. The Headliner. Healer's Quest. Heart of the Woods. Let's go ahead and discard another card. Heaven Will Be Mine. Let's check that. That looks like a visual novel. Heaven's Hope looks like a hidden object game. Heaven's Vault. I think this is a finished game. And I kind of want to play it. But let's see. Herald is not something. Heroes of Might and Magic 5. I think we can remove that. I don't see a real reason to buy Heroes of Might and Magic 5 just because I liked Heroes of Might and Magic 3. for instance. Alright. See, Hexen. I probably would only spotlight Hexen's games. Hidden Dragon Legends. Let's see what that is. Here we have a hidden object game that's mixed. Like Higurashi When They Cry. I think I own the first one of these, and I'm willing to try the first one of these. But this is a long visual novel series, horror visual novel series too. I'm hoping it's a lot more of a horror series than the experience that I had with 999, because that felt like that was supposed to be a horror visual novel series and it really wasn't. Let's check that one out. Hitman, the remake of Hitman, and Hitman 2, I'm not sure you can even buy on Steam anymore. Hob is a game that's been too expensive. Hollow Knight. Holy Potatoes, a spy story. Holy Potatoes, a weapon shop. And Holy Potatoes, We're in Space. And Holy Potatoes, What the Heck. All should be rethought. Here we have a Home Sweet Home horror game. Homesick is a game that's fine but too expensive. A lot of these really do just never go on sale. House Flipper. If I got that cheap, that would probably be alright, but let's do this. Alright. Play. Do everything we can possibly do. Well, that annoys me, to say the least. Let's see. Hover, HTOL, NIQ, Hue, and Hustle Cat. Those images didn't load. Let's see. Yeah, I think we stop at H, and we just finish this game, and then we call it that, because I don't know. I probably wouldn't be too hard to go through the eyes too. There really aren't going to be a ton of things. Immortal Unchained I need to look at. But yeah, we're having a slow time with the images loading. Indivisible, waiting for that to get cheap. Infernum is mixed, so we need to look at that. I need to think about whether I really want to play Infinite Factory. Injustice, Gods Among Us, and Injustice 2. I think there's a reason no one knows if you got them really, really cheap. I think we can easily remove Insanity Clicker, though. There's no reason for that. Inside, I want that. This one, Interfectorium, is mixed. Invisible Apartment, I think might be a visual novel series, so I should think about whether I really want to cover that. Let's see, what else do we have? Iris Fall, Iron Commando, mixed. I don't know why I just lost. Either I took too long and it disconnected me because I took too long, or he did something that just did a massive amount of damage. Yeah, Iron Commando's out. Or we'll look at it. I'll look at it detailed. Island is overwhelmingly positive, so I'll look at it, but I really am just opening a lot of these visual novels and then saying, yeah, I'll look at them, and then I look at them and I'm like, it's still kind of good enough. It Lurks in the Woods looks like it could be removed. And yeah, so that's the eyes. We'll be at Jay's next on Friday, as long as we don't have too much news. And let's see. What else do we want to do here? We are at now 1,700 gold. So do I want to reevaluate spending 3,000 on a sleeve? I don't think so. We don't have any packs open. And we probably don't even have any new cards. Alright. But we still did fairly well today. Like, today was very progressive as far as getting up on this and getting up to gold tier 3, and ideally if we get up to gold tier 2, that would be great. I need to get 5 more victories. Well, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.